All over to you all.
How are you guys tonight? I'll take head nods all around. So last week it was a total accident, but I thought I hit send on the email and I did not, and it got stuck in my drafts, but it ended up being really amazing because we had a very off the cuff conversation. And so Peter and I both kind of thought that we'll do that for a couple of weeks where we just come up with a topic on the spot. And well, I've thought about the topic, but all of you guys come up with your ideas on the spot and you have less time to think about and curate what you're going to say. So something that came to mind this week is I am so busy in my current life and I feel like I'm just like running on empty. And I know Jeff and I have done a lot of Zoom meetings recently, kind of talking about intergenerational stuff and how Baba shows up differently for everybody and how everybody's relationship with Baba can look different, but is also so similar. And I was thinking how sweet it would be for us to share and sort of reminisce on some of our lovely and sweetest moments with Baba, because, it can get kind of mundane going through every day, saying Baba's name, going through the motions. And then he likes to challenge us. And so I think also always like remembering Baba's sweetness and love can really bring us back to that heart space. And it's kind of like, when you fall in love with somebody, remembering that, like, oh, that's the Baba that I fell in love with. So yeah, I kind of just want to make this an open share tonight where everybody just shares some of their heartfelt, really touching moments where Baba sort of saw them and came through in the most unexpected ways. So with that, I'm going to open the floor. If you guys all need a few minutes to sort of think about it. Hi, Tony. Tony, I just gave the breakdown just because we're going to try not sending out emails each week and just doing it kind of off the cuff. But I want to share some of our sweetest moments with Baba, just to kind of reminisce and just bring them up to the surface again. And so, yeah, I'll just give you guys a few minutes to think about it. And when one comes up, I have a really funny Baba story that I can open up with. Oh, that was a really good thing to do, Peter. Smart thinking. He just put the question in the chat. But some of you may have heard this story, but it's like one of my favorite moments with Baba. So when I was from like 18 or maybe like 17 and a half to 20, I was like backpacking the world. And so I would like, backpack for a few months, come home, sleep on someone's couch and make a bunch of money in a restaurant and then go back and backpack. Or I guess it was like 18 to 20. But so on one of these excursions, I was doing Europe and I had met a bunch of Australians and we had all gotten like, when you meet people and you're traveling all together, it's like a big cluster, right? And you become like a family. And so we had just gone through like Amsterdam, Prague, Berlin, or not Prague, Prague, Berlin, all of, the really fun party cities. And when you're 19 and 18, that's all you're doing is you're going out dancing every night and having a good time. So we were in Amsterdam. We had a bus that we had to take at like 7 a.m. in the morning or something. So we all decided that we're going to go to London together because that's where a number of them were flying out. So I had met these other two girls and we were going to continue traveling on together. So it just made sense to go to London. So we were supposed to, catch a bus from Amsterdam to Calais in France, and then you take a ferry from Calais to Dover in England, and then a bus to London. So when we're sitting and I'm staring at the beautiful white cliffs of Dover, and I want to buy a coffee on the ferry. So I start to like pat myself down and I go to grab my wallet. And all of a sudden I realize, oh, I don't have my wallet. Uh-oh. But I mean, I'm not really somebody who gets like very easily stressed out. And also the bus was underneath the boat. So I just thought maybe it was on the bus, right? So we go and I'm like just kind of acutely aware of this, that I don't have my wallet. And then we get back on the bus to go to London, and there was a group of 4 Australian Army guys that we were with. And it was kind of like a tourist bus. So these Australian Army soldiers, everybody on the bus, they're like telling everybody, get up. And we're ripping the bus apart. like pulling up the seats. Everyone has like no idea what's going on. Anyway, the wallet is not on the bus. And so we get to London finally. I'm still not super upset because we were all sharing a big hotel room to save money. So I thought maybe it got in somebody's backpack. So we get to London, we all share a hotel room. I think it was 3 girls and 4 guys. So, you know, that was quite a few of us. And so we rip open all of our backpacks. We're looking for this wallet. And finally, I like admit that I don't have my wallet and it's gone and I don't know where it is. But I think I was 18, being 18, I was like, nah, I'm not going to worry about it till tomorrow morning. So we go, and it was also their last night and we had created such a really beautiful friendship. So I actually, one of the girls had borrowed €100 from me at some point during the trip. So I had €100 because she paid me back. But so we end up going to bed that night, you know, they paid for my hotel or whatever. And in the morning, it hit me that I didn't have my wallet and I was stuck in a foreign country and all my friends were leaving too. So this was really hitting me. So I have this thing with Baba. I've only used it about 4 times, but online there's like a spinning wheel that you can put in different options. And I don't use this. I don't decide like, hey, Baba, I've never even been like, Baba, should I work this job or something? It's like, Baba, this is in case of emergency, you know, press this button. And so I put a couple options into this little spinning wheel online. And one was end my trip. Because luckily, #1 travel tip, I tell everyone to remember their credit card number because I had my credit card number memorized. So I could buy tickets and things like that. And so one was go home, one was have someone Western Union me money. And then I just put this in there because almost like kind of as a joke, like I didn't really think it was going to happen, but there was this little service station that the bus stopped at from halfway between Amsterdam to Calais in France. And the way I found it is I Googled every single McDonald's in the Netherlands. And so I didn't even know if it was the right one. I knew it was like somewhere on the border of Belgium. Anyway, it was called Hazeldonk. So I am laying in bed next to my 2 girlfriends that I had just become like best friends with. And I open my phone, I spin my wheel, and in bright white letters, it says, go to Hazeldonk. And my first thought was, Baba, what are you doing to me right now? Like, I'm trusting you. I told you, don't mess with me. I'm going to go. I'm going to do this. So my girlfriends, they were kind of concerned for me, but they, you know, the 7 of them or whatever, they wanted to go spend the day in London. And I didn't have any money, so I couldn't go spend the day in London. So I went online, I booked a bunch of tickets to get to Hazeldonk. So basically that day I took the underground rail from London to Brussels. And then from Brussels, I took another train to Antwerp. And then I took a bus from Antwerp to, oh shoot, I forget the name of Turnhout. And then there was another tiny little town in Belgium that I could take a bus that would take me like I think it was like a 10-kilometer walk from this service station that I had no idea my wallet was at. So I book all these tickets. Luckily, I was able to book them all online. And I get to this little town that I'm supposed to be able to catch the bus to go near. And it was like kind of a local city bus. I mean, it was about 2 hours away, but it was not like a big bus company or something like that. I get there and I missed the bus by 5 minutes. And so I'm like, okay, Baba, I'm really ready to break down. This is too much. I can't do it. I trusted you. You betrayed me. You're not God in human form. What have you done to me? And so then there's like I need to use Wi-Fi because I don't have a cell phone or anything. So I go into a little cafe. And when I start speaking to him in English, he looks at me like I'm an alien. And so I have to use some of my money to buy a coffee so I can use the Wi-Fi. I figure out where I am. And outside of this coffee shop or restaurant, there was a taxi stand with about like 10 taxis kind of, you know, all lined up. I am like very close to tears. I'm not crying at this point, but I show them on my phone where I need to go. And I said, all I have is €97. That's all I can give you. And they all were like, no, that's a €200 ride. I'm not taking you. I go to every single one and I'm begging them. Finally, at the very last taxi, it looks like Harry Potter's car. It is so broken down. It is like this old white 1950s. It looks like the cars in India. Like, I don't know if you guys know Biff Soper, but it looked like Biff Soper's car. And like, you know, the upholstery was separated from the ceiling. And this is Belgium. This is like, I don't know if you guys have spent time in Belgium, but most of Belgium is just a flat prairie land. And this is prairie land, Belgium. And it's an Afghani man who has the biggest smile on his face. And I show him where I need to go. And I tell him my story, how I have 97 euro. And he says, yeah, no problem, get in. So he ends up driving me 2 hours to actually directly to the service station. And he tells me all about his life. You know, he moved here from Afghanistan, fell in love with a Belgian girl. They have a beautiful child. You know, we talked about spirituality. I told him about Baba. So we had this long conversation. Anyway, so he drops me off and he wishes me luck. And I walk inside and he turns around and he leaves. I give him my 97 euro. And then so I walk into the service station and I say, has anybody seen a black wallet? And they all go, no, sorry, not gonna happen. Like, we didn't see it. Like, why are you here, you crazy American? And I was like, are you sure? It's a little black wallet. And there's this girl behind the counter that she goes, oh, the one with the picture of the man with the mustache in it. And I was like, that's my wallet. So anyway, I ended up getting back my wallet and it was like this beautiful, I mean, I have such a chuckle with Baba because it was like, obviously there were so many people who had to hear his name and be connected to him along the way, but couldn't he have made it a lot cheaper or easier on me? But just like such a sweet moment with Baba because I really thought my trip was over. And it was just this like, he really catered to the adventurer in me. And so then I took my wallet, had all my money in it, all my ID cards, everything. And I hitchhiked with a truck driver to the Amsterdam airport and then flew back to London that night. And that was it. So that's my really sweet moment with Baba that I just wanted to share. Hopefully that sparked something else in all of you guys and I didn't just talk for 10 minutes. But so does anybody else have any stories that are of sweetness with Baba where he kind of comes through for you? All right, Tony.
Yeah, I haven't, I'm listening, but I haven't heard the story to tell. But just commenting on yours, while I was listening, I remembered something that happened that I haven't told this as a story, and I don't remember all the particulars, but I think there was some online conversation going on about Baba. Maybe it was the listserv. There was some issue, and I don't remember what it was. And the next time I turned on my computer, Baba was clearly responding to this thing that I don't remember now, but the name Mayor Baba was appearing on my screen. It was about like this big compared to the rest of the screen, and it was sort of embossed, and it was translucent to whatever was behind it. And it went on for I remember telling people at the time, and they must have thought I was crazy. And after 2 or 3 days, it went away.
Wow.
It's not a story because there's no beginning, middle, or end. There is, I just forgot it. But that I remember, it was like, holy shit, in my computer, Baba why not? Papa's Baba, why not? That's all. I'll find something to share later, I hope.
Yeah, I love that. No, but that's exactly the kind of stuff Baba comes through in the most unexpected moments with just such sweetness. And I think that, you know, we can credit him for being the difficult avatar, the one who puts us through so much. But then we also need to highlight how much he brings love into our lives in such sweet, sweet, sweet ways. Anyone else? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Marcia.
Okay, this is a story. A couple years ago, I was staying at Myrtle Beach and I wanted to stay longer, so I made arrangements to meet with someone to give me a ride to the person that was renting a house. And I had found the Sherrier gate one time and I thought I knew the way, and I was supposed to meet the person at 8 o'clock. Well, I got to the gate or whatever, and I couldn't find the person, and my cell phone stopped working. And it was around Christmas time, and I was wandering around in the woods in the dark, and the trails were covered with leaves. And I was like, wow, this is kind of like weird, right? And I couldn't find my way. And they had just put up this big giant security gate, like all the way around. So I knew where I was going, but I couldn't find my way. And I kept walking and walking. This was about 8 o'clock at night. And I said, I can't stop walking because maybe there's bears or coyotes. And I'd always been afraid of getting lost in the woods. So I knew that Baba was there, but he wasn't going to really help me to get me out of the woods. And there were people with Christmas lights, and I was like, and I heard dogs barking, so I pretended to bark, like, woof, woof, help, help, right? And I wasn't getting any help. And, I was getting really, really tired. So finally, by some kind of miracle, I found an opening in the gate. And just before 11 o'clock, I ended up at my cabin, right? Just for curfew. And then I was leaving the next day. So I was packing. And in the morning, I threw my phone and my iPad accidentally into the linen, right? So the person came to give me a ride to the airport. And I said, I can't leave. I can't find, I don't know my ticket. I can't find anything. And she was kind of upset. And I said, I'll give you money. I don't care. I just can't find it. Anyway, so I ended up going to the trust office, and they thought I was really, really, really crazy because, here's this old lady demented wandering around the woods, right? But anyway, it turns out they called my daughter and all kinds of people and everything, and it turns out Jeff calls up, and when he was going through my sheets, he found the phone and the iPad in the sheets. So I ended up getting to stay an extra day. But it was like a weird time because when I came home to Chicago, the person that was watching my dogs was passed out on the floor in my bathroom. I guess he'd been doing drugs. And my daughter was so mad at me, and she thought I was totally crazy, but it worked out. So she made me change my locks, and I couldn't hire this guy anymore. And he was like, it was just like this bizarre thing. But all the time that I was wandering around, I knew that Baba was there, but he wanted me to get over the fear of being lost. So now I'm not afraid about being lost in the woods anymore. Jai Baba. It was really weird. Yeah.
Hey, Baba. Thank you. That's a sweet one. I know, Peter, are you there? I don't know if I know you're off camera, but I don't know, maybe he's out of the room or something. Oh, we got Ralph.
I have two short stories.
Okay.
One, I'd never heard of Baba. It was probably about 1957 or so. And I was just a child. We lived in San Antonio, Texas. And a relative, an uncle, had given me for a Christmas present this really nice set of cowboy pistols with genuine leather holsters. And these were revolver 6-shooters, a cap pistol with a long barrel. They really looked like the real thing, and they had interchangeable handle plates. One was pearl and the other was black. That was so cool. And across the street and toward the end of the block, there was a large empty lot. No house had been built there. This was residential street. And the weeds were grown up in there. It was Johnson grass, tall, way over our heads. Our children and all us kids used to go. We had made tunnels through the Johnson grass and loved playing in there, hide and seek and cowboy and everything in the world. Somehow, while playing in there, for some reason, I must have taken the guns off my body. And then I suddenly realized I didn't have them. And I couldn't, and I looked and I looked. and I started getting concerned because I was really attached to these guns. And I couldn't find them. I couldn't find them. All the other kids went home, and I got depressed. I went to my house, and I was walking the floors in the house and thinking, oh, this can't be. I can't lose those guns. My gosh, they were a Christmas present. And I started talking to God. I mean, I guess I did. I could just started thinking, God, asking God for help, silently. This was like stewing up in me, like boiling up. God, oh, I hated God that I'm lost those pistols. I just can't be. And all of a sudden, it's like a Holy Spirit just took me. Only way I noticed is when May Harris used to sing a song, she used to say, before singing, she'd say, Baba, take over. Well, I didn't say, Lord, take over. I didn't ask God to find my pistols. I was just really bemoaning the loss. And could it really be so? And all of a sudden, I just started walking right back out there. I walked right down in the street into those weeds and walked right up to where those pistols were. I picked them up, and there they were, and found it. I really felt happy. And probably the first time in my life I ever thanked God. I felt grateful. I thanked God for and gave him credit for finding those pistols, because I don't know, otherwise I had given up hope. The other story is 1969 in India, in Pune for Baba's Darshan. And my best friend, Chris Barker, and I were roommates in the Amir Hotel. We had arrived, and we'd arrived kind of in mid-morning time and gotten into our rooms. There were about 30 people that were on our flight. We were an overflow flight that came the day before a full plane of 707, full plane of Baba lovers. And so we were there, and we had instructions to stay in our rooms and not go out. Don't go anywhere. Well, I don't know. We had like a little balcony or something, and we could look out onto the street. We could just look right out and see down all this activity. And it was India. I'd never seen India, or I've never been in the East. And I was just fascinated with all of the activity and people. And we were looking down there, and there was a pawn shop, and there was a bicycle rental place. And I said to Chris, I said, look, you can rent a bicycle. Chris said, yeah. And I said, we're not supposed to go out. But I said, look here, Chris, here's the street right below us. And it goes down there, and it wides out to either side of the railroad station. Goes left, and it goes a little bit right. And a little bit right actually went to Guru Prasad. A little bit left, we didn't know where it went. We didn't know right went to Guru Prasad either. And I said, we're not supposed to go out, but what could it hurt if we get a bicycle and don't veer right or left? Don't go wandering or sightseeing. Just stay on the street and go a ways, and like the bear went over the mountain, and let's just see what's down there. Chris says, oh, we better not. And I said, okay. And then we mulled it over again. We caved to temptation. We got a bicycle, and took off. And we went left at the railroad station. And there were lots of shops. Everywhere it was all shops. And here, right in the middle of all of this humanity and commerce, came a herd of buffalo. And they filled the street. They were up on the sidewalks. And some of them were even venturing into some of the shops, and the shopkeepers were having to scream at them and shoo them big old buffalo out of their place of business. And we were on our bicycles, and I said, "Oh my God, look at that. What are we going to do?" And there to our right, all of a sudden, just before we had no choice but to either turn around or get squashed, to our right was an alley. And we just took that alley. And as I went into the entrance of that little alley, that little lane, I looked up, and there was a banner that stretched across that alley. It was tethered to the buildings on either side of the alley. And that banner said, Avatar Meher Baba Puna Center. And I screamed, and we didn't get far. And I screamed at Chris. I said, "Hey, Chris, the Meher Baba Puna Center's in this alley." And at that point, we were there. And we saw that, and there was a fellow dressed in white cotton garments that had white hair cut very short like a burr. And he had acne pot. He was heavy set, and his face was acne popped. Big, strong looking man. And we stopped and said, "Jay Baba," because we saw that was the Puna Center, and he was standing inside the yard there. And he said, looked us over a bit skeptical and said, "Jay Baba." And we went in and embraced him. And he says, "Who are you? My name is Pukar." And so that first person we met in India, Baba Lover, was Pukar. And he gave us a tour of the Puna Center. And at some point also, the president of the Puna Center, Ramakrishnan, came and conversed with us for a little while. We had a good visit. We went back then we decided to get back to the hotel. And when we got there, people were all in a scurry and loading on the bus to go to Guru Prasad, which we almost missed out on that. And we got on that bus and went to Guru Prasad and went in, men on one side, girls and women on the other side of the building with Mara and Monty. And with us, there was Adi, and I think lots of people were there, but Erich. And Erich greeted us. We all sat down in that room. There's lots of films of Bob in that room, Bob eating popcorn. And that was that story. Yeah. Jay Bob.
Jay Baba, thank you so much. I love those sweet little, it actually reminded me of a story from one of my trips to India. When you just talked about that, it was my last trip, and Baba really, my trip, I was there in November of last year, and it was like the most incredible, beautiful, bliss-filled, loving trip. And then when I came back, I went back in January and February, or February, March. And I was there for 2 months, and Baba it was not the same loving, sweet trip that I had before, but there was one day that I really, really wanted to sing at RT. And it's kind of hard to get in when there's a lot of Indians visiting, especially around like Amartithi time. it's very hard for the Westerners to get in. And so I was like sitting there trying to get the guy's attention to like tell him I wanted to sing, and he just would not look at me. And it was like I was just having this feeling of unworthiness, and he kept not looking at me. And it was just like finally RT was like pretty close to ending. And so I get in line. And I think I'm like starting to cry because it just was like this icing on the cake of just not feeling very well. So I get in line, and you know they never call on you if you're in line. And all of a sudden, the guy who does RT, which I forget his name, but he's got these really glasses that he wears really close to his eyeballs, so they're kind of like that. And he looks at me, he goes, you sing. And I had to get out of the RT line and sing my song. But it was just a really, really sweet Baba moment, or Baba. He waited to the last second, but he answered my longing in the sweetest way. All right. Somebody else have a story in there?
Do you remember the song?
What song? Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
RT.
What was that?
Do you recall the song, the RT you sang?
Yes. Yeah, it was River of My Song. Yes, it was a good one.
Jai Baba.
Jay Baba. All right, we got Tony.
So I'm thinking that moments of sweetness, sweetness with Baba, they are usually don't have big stories connected with them, just by the nature of sweetness, you know. I can be sitting in my chair up in the bedroom, and I'm on the phone with somebody, or and suddenly in the midst of the conversation, Baba in the photo just across from me on the other side of the room will just respond. Will just glance and he'll like, yes, I like that what you just said, and that sort of thing happens a lot, you know, and it's sweet. It's very sweet. It's just a simple little thing, but and I've grown to know I can accept the, you know, that it is Baba. The only other thing that came to mind just now, which was really sweet. I was on the verge of splitting up from my first wife. It was looked like that was coming, and I had a daughter who was almost 3. We had, and I decided we should go to India, and either at the Samadhi, Baba would work it out, or it would end at the Samadhi, which is the best place for it to end. So in Baba's presence, either way. So I got a 6-week stay in India, and that's a whole story. I won't go into it. It had to do with the UN. I was on a mission in Malaysia, and I had vacation time and so on. So I went for the 6 weeks from before Amar Tithi to Baba's birthday, after Baba's birthday. And my then wife and daughter Clara came to meet me on the 3rd week. So after I'd been there for 2 weeks, I went back to Bombay, picked them up, got them back to Mehrabad. We stayed there for 2 weeks, and then I took them back to Bombay. There are a lot of stories in this, nothing to do with the sweetness though. And they went home, and their marriage did end a few months after we got back. But the sweetness story was after they'd gone back. When I left to take them home to Bombay, Amar Tithi preparations were already beginning, and people were volunteering, and they had this little badge that said, Amar Tithi worker, Amar Tithi volunteer. And I had mixed feelings about it. I really wanted to participate and do that. On the other hand, I just wanted to be basking in Baba's presence. But by the time I got back, everyone had signed up for everything, and I was like left out. And I was feeling really bad about it. I didn't show it, I didn't speak about it, but it was a niche in my heart, you know? So one day I'm up at the top of the hill during Amar Tithi, and the Amar Tithi Darshan line was so slow. You'd get on the line and you'd get in maybe 3 hours later, and or longer. It used to go down the hill, and there weren't all these methods they have now to make it a little bit more sane. But so someone had been online for about 3 hours, one of the residents there, Western residents, and he or she, I don't recall now, said, Tony called me over. Tony, can you help me here? Do you have a bicycle? And I said, yeah, I do. I had gotten a bicycle. And he said, I'm supposed to be on duty at Hostel D in 15 minutes. But I've been waiting all this time. If I leave, I'll never get in to take darshan. Could you just go down and tell the person who's there what's going on and that I'll be down as soon as I take darshan? And I said, sure. And I was like the chance to do something, you know? And I got on the bicycle and I rode down the hill and I went back to Hostel D. I gave the message. I came back up. Person had gotten to have darshan, everything. I put my bicycle away a little bit behind the stage area. Um, and and I came back to enjoy what was going on the hill. The next time I got back to the bicycle, no one knew what was going on in me. No one. When I got back to the bicycle, someone had garlanded it with roses, honoring the bicycle that did the service. Yeah, that's a sweetness story. That's a
That's
story.
beautiful.
And I kept that. I think I still have it, or it may have finally um, perished. They don't, garlands don't last for, this was 1990. So I had it a few decades. But yeah, that was the story. The Baba Garland did the bicycle that did the service.
I love stories like that. Thanks, Tony. I had something. I'm just gonna keep sharing until other people put their hand up. I'm not trying to dominate the conversation, but I'm trying to hopefully spark other people to remember. But my last trip to India, although it was hard, it was also, of course, graced with so much sweetness from Baba. But my deepest longing had always been to be able to work in Marizad. And it just it never worked out. But Devana and I have always been so close, like, because she's been watching me come since I was like 14. And her and I have just really, really connected over the years. And after, all these years, I've always mentioned to her that like I want to be in Marizad, but you know how it is. It's limited, right? The people who get to help out there. So I just kind of go and I was like, hey, Devana, I'm back. And if there's anything that you ever want, that I always want to be in Marizad and that I would love to help. And I feel like this trip was a big kind of tie up for me because I thought I was going to move back to Myrtle Beach and I thought I was going to, be in India and all of this. And he's got me back in Phoenix, which is great. But the sweetness that I see that he did now is like I had this longing to work in Marizad. And so Devana, she pulled me aside one day and she was like, would you like to clean Mara's house? And I was like, clean Mara's house. Is that a joke? So there was another woman, really lovely woman named Margi, but we both got to come and we cleaned every single inch of the women's house, like the little floorboards, the baseboards behind Baba's picture. And the sweetest thing that you guys probably would appreciate is, Mani and Mara taught Shelly, Devana, and Casey how to clean Baba's picture. And so they have, of course, a couple of different rags that they clean Baba's picture with. But the sweetest thing is when they rub over Baba's face, Mani and Mara would rub in like fast circles and pretend to wash Baba's face. So we get to do this on all of the pictures. But yeah, just some real moments of sweetness of like having that time there and kind of feeling like that 10-year longing was finally heard. All right. Am I gonna have to start calling on people? Tony, okay, this is a Tony and Margi night.
So I just thought of it, because what was keeping me from sharing was it's Baba's sweetness. There are so many things throughout the day, and I don't really remember any of them in particular. I just remember all these instances of sweetness. And then I thought, well, duh, just 2 mornings ago, I had a dream that I was in India, I guess, and I looked to my left, and who's there but Mani? And it was such a tamani. It was so thrilled to see you. And she didn't have anything to say. She was just there, and that was fine. Then I went over, and I wanted to talk to Bao about my daughter Clara, and Bauji was there on Mirabad Hill, and Erich was also there. But then Erich talked to Bauji about something, and then he went off, and I talked to Bauji about this thing with my daughter Clara, whatever it was, or I tried to. But the idea that I woke up, the idea that Baba let me have the experience in this dream of being with Mani again, of being with Bauji again, of being with Erich again. How sweet does it get? You know, how much sweeter could it get? So yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you. Yeah, I think also when we all tell these stories, we get reminded of just how tender and just sweet Baba is. Like Baba sometimes plays, that I have the image of like a little boy who's got a crush on a girl. He like brings her wildflowers. Like that's the way that Baba loves us. So often he just brings us little wildflowers, and is so, of course he's got to play God, right? And grind our egos once in a while, and that's the real love, right? That's the tough love. But he also just gives that sweetness that it really just makes you beam. You see it, and maybe it's you have a unsaid agreement with Baba about some kind of flower or some kind of weather pattern or something, and then Baba will just have it come out at the perfect second of when you need it. Well, I'm gonna start. Ken, I see that you're on. I don't know if are you I know your camera's not on. Do you have any? You can stay muted. No, looks like he's staying muted. All right.
Hi, Margi
Hi.
and Tony and everyone.
You
I'm
know,
just
go ahead.
listening. Nothing is coming to mind, but maybe something will shortly. We'll see.
I have to tell you though that the picture that you have of Baba on your Zoom account brings so much sweetness every time that you're on, because it looks like a live action photo of Baba. I don't know why. It's so high def that it really, every time I see it, I'm like, wow, Baba's on the Zoom meeting.
Tony Zoyce did the touching up on that, because I posted this on Facebook a few days ago, and he commented that was one of his
Wow.
his
Yeah,
colorizations.
it looks so real. Well,
I have
I'll
one
share,
more.
I'll share a recent story. Like you said, there's, so many stories. It's hard to pick even one because I've been knowing about Baba since like I was a baby. But this was in Myrtle Beach a couple months ago. And it was like the end of I think it was in like March or April. It was the end of Marsha's art show. She did an art show with paintings in the main place, and she was so nice, like to give paintings randomly to our team that works and volunteers in the center. And it was one Sunday after RT, I was helping put things away and like clean up after RT with the barn. And she randomly gives me a painting, and it was like one of my favorite paintings of the whole show. And I was like in shock and like in awe. And it was a beautiful one of Mani. And I realized I really don't have any pictures or paintings or whatnot of Mani. And it was just really, really sweet. And it's in my room. I hung it like right near a beautiful picture of Baba, and it's one of my treasures. And I love unique arts and pictures. I love paintings and pictures of Baba or Mani or Mara, and that was really awesome and sweet. So thank you, Marsha, by the way. Good for listening.
Hey, you're welcome. Wow. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Look, you just facilitated one of Baba's moments of sweetness for Marsha. All right, Tony, did you have another story?
I've forgotten it
Hiding
all.
for that one.
It was a good one. If it comes back, I'll raise my hand again.
Okay. Did you have something else, Marsha?
Yeah, I had a really sweet moment in 1994 when I was in Mirazad for Silence Day. I met Mani, and I was standing in line with Annie Lovett for Darshan, and Mani drove up in the car with all the women Mandalay, and they pulled us out of the Darshan line and handed us flowers, and we went all over garlanding all the places that Baba had been, and I was like on fire. You know, when I'd look in the sky, I would see Baba in the sky. I saw him in my scarf. I saw him everywhere, and they said, "Oh, it's your Baba's birthday." And I didn't know what that meant, right? And then at the Dooney fire, I was like walking around contemplating, what am I gonna put in this Dooney fire? And somebody grabbed me, and it was Mohammed, and he was sitting in a wheelchair, and he reached out and grabbed me. I said, "Wow," I didn't know who he was, but I'll never forget that. And what else? Oh, and then I brought you know how you go to Abhignagar and you bring a cloth, and I brought it to the samadhi, and I gave it to Mani, and they put it on the samadhi, and I never thought I'd see it again. And the day I was leaving, she came out and handed it to me. So I have that here still, wrapped up in a special place, but it was on the tomb. So I feel that's pretty special. And what else do I remember? Um, we went and rented a car, a bunch of people, to go to the Allure Caves. And I was looking out the window, and the whole way there was just this rainbow across. Like, I couldn't believe my eyes. When I looked out the window, all I saw was this huge rainbow going on, and I'm thinking, wow, there must be something wrong with my eyes. So I think that was pretty special. And then when I was really young, and I don't even remember when, I had a dream that I was flying in the sky and holding on to somebody's hand that was wearing a white gown. And we were flying over this giant body of water. And over to the right, there was like the samadhi or a temple or whatever. And then now, recently, a few years ago, I said, wow, I think I was really flying with Baba, but I thought it was a dream at the time. So that's some of my Baba things that I remember. Well, yeah. It's pretty lucky. Yeah.
Thanks, Marcia. All right, back to Tony.
I remembered. The UN, and I think it was in '96, sent me to cover the Human Rights Conference for World Human Crisis Conference on Human Rights in Geneva, Vienna, and it happened to be UN. I had 6 weeks vacation annually, so I could often connect a trip for myself with some official travel, and in this case, Don Stevens' group was having a seminar, as he called them, a Baba seminar at Lake Balaton in Hungary. And I went there, and it was lovely. I mean, they were all presenting papers, but it was still Baba's presence, in the whole thing. And that's where Don Stevens told about surrendering his sex life and his finances to Baba. He opened up as I had never heard of, and led to me back in New York. Putting my love life in Baba's hands. That's not this story. That was not sweet. But it was great, but not sweet. So there was a couple there, Alfred and Marion Saunders, an old English couple. If you ever met them, they were such characters. He was this kind of skinny guy, and she was kind of like bubbly and a little bit like moving people around. And she said, "We're kidnapping you." And on their way back to England, they were going to be stopping at Fallenfleur, the mountain in Switzerland where Baba had a meeting with the spiritual hierarchy, standing in a shaft of light while everything around him was being drenched with rain. It's a one of those stories in the God Man. So I said, okay. I couldn't say no to Marion. It was like, so we drove through to Budapest and a few places, and then we're driving through the Austrian countryside, and it's beautiful, really, really beautiful. And at one point, I leaned out and I was taking pictures from the passenger seat of these beautiful cloud formations, and I took like a whole series, and I don't know what was it that drew me to that so much, but it was. Short time later, we get to a rest stop. And as we're coming back to the car, Alfred sees me, and I'm about to get the car. He says, "No, no, come here," and he says, "Just take a picture of me right now." He's pointing down like that. He says, "Take a picture of me right now." He said, just like that." I took the picture, and then he showed me the car right next to ours. The license plate was Baba. Which
Aw.
was cool. It was very cool, and it was very sweet, right? I get back to New York, and I develop the pictures. And in that cloud formation, the sequence of pictures, you see first there's nothing, then you see something forming, then you see it's clearly Baba's face, and then it disperses. And that Mara loved the story, and I sent her the picture. Meru, and she would take them out and tell the story to people in Mara's eye. But that was very sweet, especially like that after touch about the photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So sweet.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Tony. All right. Looks like we got Ralph. Oh no, Ralph, you're muted.
Yes, here we are. Tony jogged my memory of also with Marion and what were their names? Tony, help me.
Marion and Alfred Saunders.
Alfred was it Saunders? Okay, yes. Did they live in the countryside in England or in town or in London? Do you
I
know?
didn't accompany.
You don't
I
know.
didn't accompany them to England. I went to the UN conference in Vienna after that to
They
do my
were
job.
staying at Mayher Center. I do not remember the year, but it would have been the 1980s. I can say that with confidence. And they were staying on the center, and on Sundays I would be the librarian to open the library and stay in the library for the duration of the time that the library was open on Sundays. And Kitty would always give me a piece of music to play, usually symphonic music or a tape, a Baba tape to play, someone's talk or story like that. And so on this occasion, Kitty gave me a long play record, 33 RPM of Beethoven. I don't remember which symphony it was, but it was a very dramatic symphony. And so we got to the library. There was no one but me there. And then Marion and Alfred came. And Alfred sat in a chair at the end of one of the bookshelves. And of course, facing out. And then there was, the wall was all glass, looking out over Long Lake from the library there. And so it was time to start the record. And I told Marion and Alfred we were going to play Beethoven's symphony, whichever one that symphony was. And I started it, and Marion remained standing, looking out, at the trees, at the nature and the lake and the ocean beyond. And she fully engaged with that symphony, physically and emotionally. She was like the director, very animated, very physical, really got into it for the entire symphony, both sides of the record. And I was flabbergasted. I was just awed. I've never seen anyone participate in recorded music to that degree of enthusiasm. I thought it was just wonderful. And so at that time, during those days, I had a Volkswagen Bug. And Kitty said, so it came time during that same period, it was time for the Southeast gathering was occurring. And Kitty said, Ralph, are you going to the Southeast gathering? And I said, oh, yes, I am. And she said, Marion and Alfred are looking for a ride. Can you think you could take them in your VW? And I said, yes, it's a long drive and it's not a very big vehicle. She says, they'll be just fine. They're accustomed to such things. And they were very pleasant company. And wonderful couple. I remember them very fondly. Jay Baba.
Jay Baba. Thank you, Ralph. I love this sweet story. Sorry, I just put a piece of chicken in my mouth, which is bad timing. I want to ask Diane and Terry because they just came on. But so our topic tonight is just really sweet moments with Baba. Nothing in particular, just when you felt Baba's sweetness. So I'll give you guys a few minutes because Tina put her hand up. And then we'll come back to you guys. But go ahead, Tina.
Yeah, well, in, I guess it was 2004, I got divorced and I bought this new apartment. And I, sorry, I just was dozing off a little bit. Um, I, I, um, I installed a new radiator because it was cold, and no one told me that they coated the radiators with Rust-Oleum paint, and so the end result was that my entire apartment, which I had just bought, was filled with noxious fumes like a smelting furnace in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And the thing was that nobody was affected but me. And so I didn't know what to do. I couldn't sleep there. I couldn't live there. And so I checked into the YMCA where I was a member. And one night I couldn't breathe, even though, because the particles had just filled my lungs. And so I took a taxi to the emergency room and I died in the operating table. And I saw Baba in a long white sadra, and he was holding a scroll, and he said, "You're not on the list." And he pushed me through the tunnel. And so then I thought, well, I can't live there, even though my friends had tried to help me clean up the place. It didn't do any good, and I couldn't live there. So I decided, well, I'll rent it out. And by the way, at this point, I was in a Broadway show. And so I rented it to this guy with the agreement. It was like for a cheap price, but it was with the agreement that he would show the apartment to prospective buyers. And so one day I came in and I noticed, like, he didn't have a lot of he had a lot of money in the bank, but he didn't have a job. But he had $100,000 in the bank. And so one day I came in and he said, Oh, yeah, I forgot to say that I'm, I noticed some pills on the counter, and it was lithium, and then there were lots of liquor bottles, and anyway, the guy was clearly a troubled soul. But one day I came in and he said, "Who's that guy in this book you have?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I had given all my Baba books to the silent auction at Meher Baba House, except for one, Glimpses of the God Man by Balna Tu. Now, you have to realize that I have a floor to ceiling bookcase, and this book was on the top shelf. Something like a magnet drew this guy to that book, and he said it helped him. And later on, he did get a job, and he kind of got his life together. And I don't know how he did it, if Baba helped him or what. But then my drama with my apartment continued. And one day I was walking out of a store in one of my many sublets, and I saw carved in the sidewalk Baba, just carved like BABA. And then another time, as I mentioned, I was in this Broadway show, and so I would kneel down and I would have this scene where I would light votive candles. And I would always see like this image of Baba's face on the wall in the shadows. And I thought it was my imagination until one day a guy said, another actor in the cast said, "Do you see that face on the wall?" And so I knew it wasn't my imagination. And well, eventually I was going to rent the apartment out again to a friend of mine. And this was after 2 years of scrubbing and wiping it down. And you could think I'm crazy, I don't care. But anyway, then they called and they said they changed their mind. And that was just the turning of the key. I never was affected by the apartment again. So you explain it to me. I don't I don't I don't know. You know, it's like, Baba, did you have to put me through so much hell to contact this one guy?
Yeah. Wow. No, he often does that. I think he does that a lot. That actually, Tina, you just reminded me of a story. One of my trips back from India, I think I was like 15. This is when I was living with Vanessa and Kevin Connor. And so it was the three boys. So it was Narayan, who's a year older than me, Jalal's a year younger, and then Francis was 2 or 3 at the time. And then Kevin and Vanessa. And I brought bed bugs back in my suitcase, which I don't know if you guys know anything about bed bugs, but
That's
they are like,
horrible.
yeah, they are like dinosaurs. They're impossible to kill. So Vanessa and I are, the bug guy shows up to exterminate or whatever. And it was quite, and kind of like you, Tina, it was all, so what was it? It was 5 of us, 6 of us. We put all the couches together. We called it the boat, and we had to sleep out in the living room, all on this like giant couch thing with like an Indian family for like months, so we could clear out the beds and get everything. But so it was quite a displacement. But the guy who came to exterminate was a very typical Myrtle Beach, rough and tough redneck type. And Vanessa she had bookcases and bookcases and bookcases of books of all top, she homeschooled the boys, so it wasn't just Baba books. But so he's talking to us about all the ways bed bugs hide, and he reaches into the bookshelf, puts his finger on a book, pulls it out, and starts being like, oh yeah, look, they can hide in the books. It was God speaks. It was just, I mean, it's just amazing. Like,
Yeah, I don't know why this guy was drawn to this particular book. It was just magical and mystical. But it did help him get his life together. He said it helped him sleep better, and he read it every night before bed. It was a help to him.
thanks, Tina. Well, we're kind of getting close on time, but I want to give Diane and Terry a chance to share. No, Diane's giving me the look.
Well, I think that the question is a great question. And I think every time I remember Baba, it's the sweetest moment because it's so not my life history. My narrative totally changed with him. So the fact that he has that effect on me is really, really sweet.
I mean, for me, knowing Baba, it's changed everything. So I feel like it's all sweet. You know, I have moments at work where he'll take x-rays with me and he'll clean teeth with me and he'll just hang with me and we drive with the car together. And whenever I make a mistake and it turns out all right, I'm so grateful to him. And I don't know, I just live with him. So I guess all the moments are sweet. I feel very lucky, very blessed by him. And one of my favorite things right now is I am part of the infinite, and the infinite God is within me. I'll repeat it. I am part of the infinite, and the infinite God is within me. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you.
Jai Baba. Thanks for asking, Margie.
Yeah, of course. All right, we got Donna Ken.
Hey, so you tell me if this is sweet or not, but it's a very old story. I guess I told it somewhere, maybe on that video of me, but it kind of came back to me fairly recently. And it just struck me how, maybe unnecessary it was in a sense. So let me set the stage. So I heard of Baba in I saw his photo and name in a hippie magazine in 1967, but he grabbed me in 1968, in November of 1968. I only found out years later, I had forgotten it was my 23rd birthday, actually. But then some years on, maybe in the 1970s, I was learning more and more about Baba and reading the books that were available. And I read about how there had been a booth at the New York World's Fair, a Baba stand that Jane Haynes and Charles and other people had for the 2 years that the World's Fair was there, 64 and 65. And I believe it was 64, I had a second cousin who lived on Long Island, and I would visit him usually in the fall, but we made a special trip and went to the World's Fair. And at this point, this is only like, 10 to 15 years later, but the only thing I remembered was seeing the Pieta, who was on loan from the Vatican, and really not too much else, except I had this one memory that stuck in my head of we were going along a walkway or something, and there were signs for the various pavilions, and there was a sign for this pavilion that said American Interiors, I believe. And, I was an 18-year-old young American kid. I'm thinking, American interiors, nothing interesting in there for me, There's only so much time. We had to see all the. And I realized, of course, that was where the Baba booth was. And I realized that the only thing that makes sense is that Baba put this memory, kept this memory alive in me. To let me know he knew about me way before I knew about him. Our connections go all the way, way back, all of us, in our various ways. And it's one of those simple things that maybe doesn't mean anything to anyone else, but that it's, a random thought that stays in your mind for years for seemingly no reason.
So beautiful.
So that's pretty sweet, I think.
So sweet. Thank you, Ken. And I think by you sharing, and all, Tony and Marcia and Ralph and Tina and Diane and Terry and everybody who shared, and Peter, what you just shared, like, it reminds everybody of how much Bob has shown us, how he remembered us before we remembered him. And yeah, so thank you for sharing that, Ken. I'm glad you spoke up. All right, we got Tony.
Yeah, just a little thing, but this was just tonight, really the last few days. Stuff's been going on with my health, and I've had a certain amount of burnout from difficulties we've had with Elena's health this year. And Angela had once asked me, can you do another concert? And I kind of begged off. I said, I'm working on a big project, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Well, last week she sent me another note that we need someone for tonight and 2 weeks from tonight. And you be available for one of those? And we'd really love to hear your music. And as I told her, I had been keeping it to myself, but I said, I got a lot going on. I feel burned out. It takes a lot of preparation to do a program like that. It doesn't seem like it, but it does. I said, I don't have the energy to do it. I don't have the spirit to do it. I said, if I can get all these things harmonized, I'd love to. And she said, well, good luck in getting it all harmonized. We'd love to hear you when you're get off the phone. And a little bit later that day, it's like Baba is speaking to me, saying, when COVID lockdown started, I urged you to do live streams of your music because people needed to hear those songs then. And I did 55 live streams for the first month every night. And then after that, it was every 2 nights or 3 nights, and then every week because I was running out of my own songs. But I suddenly had the idea, well, why not? Sometimes we broadcast videos, and I wrote back to Angela. I said, if it works for you, one way around this issue I'm having is I found 3 clips from 3 different videos that could be a nice evening of music. And she said, that's great, and I arranged to get Betty, who's good with the technicals of it. But suddenly, I'm feeling so much, my heart was doing all these crazy things. I had a cough that was so bad that I got x-rays, and they said the bronchi are I've gotten thick, like it could be bronchitis or whatever. All of this was going on, and the excitement that the love that Baba woke in me at doing this project, which was tonight, and it was lovely, by the way. I hope you'll all go and see it. But that was a really sweet thing on Baba's part, especially after going through all this physical anxiety, Yeah.
Thanks, Betty. Yeah. Well, I think this is a very sweet little night. And I think I'm going to try to send out. And I wanted to see how it went again tonight, just sort of doing it off the cuff, late night chat with no email, but maybe I'll try to send out an email next week and see if that is the preferred way. But thank you guys. And I guess we can have a moment of silence and then unmute and do Namatar Merit Baba Ki Jai.